Okay, I'm going to start this out, and I'm going to say that for some reason, it's kind of hard to find a lot of stuff on these two brothers. I can find a whole lot on the first brother, or the oldest brother. I'm going to assume that was because he was kind of the one that started everything, but if I just focused more on him, then we'd be here for an hour. So what this is about, and bear with me as I try to pronounce certain names, because these brothers were obviously Hispanic, I believe, was that. Arellano-Felix Brothers are the two that I am going to be focusing on today. They are the two that are responsible for the Tijuana cartel. Now, I don't know how many of you know anything about Tijuana, have ever been to Tijuana, have ever been to the bad parts of Tijuana. When my father was a truck driver, he has, and the stories I've heard is insane. Now, we all know about the Mexican drug cartel because in the U.S., that's all we really see on our TV. But did you know that there was a Tijuana drug cartel? Now, these brothers, one of them lived up until 1998, if I'm remembering correctly. That means that even though he was killed, they, kind of they feel more exposed and less anonymous and everything. So I don't know if it's as big as it used to be, but they were really smart about things. So, this is how it started, as far as I know. If I'm wrong, somebody please correct me. Brothers Benjamin and Ramon Arellano-Felix jointly led one of the most successful and bloodthirsty criminal organizations of all times, which would eventually turn out to be the Tijuana cartel. During the 1990s, they came to dominate the enormously lucrative trade in smuggling drugs. Now, if you've ever been to parts of Tijuana, you would assume that they were smuggling prostitutes or some kind of sex ring, and I'm not saying that jokingly. There are parts of Tijuana that you can't walk down the street without somebody propositioning you, and sometimes it's a woman, and sometimes it is a young boy. Primarily cocaine, but they also had marijuana and amphetamines, and then they would bring them into the U.S. Of course, that's kind of the same thing that's coming from Mexico, too. Mexico has long been a crucial staging point for drug traffickers, and its proximity to the U.S. had its long history of small-scale smuggling operations, which I think it's gotten larger through the years. In the 1990s, however, these organizations came under centralized control dominated by drug smuggling cartels. Oh gosh, what is his name? I cannot think of his name right now. El Chapo, something like that. He's been caught, right? Yeah, I think so. The Arellano-Felix organization became the most brutal, feared of all of these cartels. The brothers grew up in the small coastal province of Sinaloa, near the mausoleum. Their uncle Miguel Angel Felix Geraldo, see what I mean? Ran drug trafficking business out of Tijuana. Further up the west coast, next to the U.S. border, before long, the four brothers, Benjamin, Ramon, Eduardo, and Javier, headed north to work for their uncle. They began by smuggling electronic goods like television and so forth, and soon graduated to narcotics. In 1989, Geraldo was arrested. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I don't know, and it could be just my handwriting's that bad. And the brothers moved to take over the drug route. Benjamin was the oldest and naturally was the leader, as most older siblings are. Their skills were a classic mix for Latin America drug barons, a lethal mixture of integrity, brutality, and Benjamin was the brains of the operation, a mild-mannered man who could pass for an accountant. And a lot of times, if you're going to be in some kind of crime business like that, people like that are the ones that can go so long that people just don't want to believe that they're that dangerous or they're that bad. His younger brother, Ramon, was unquestionably the leader when it came to brutality. Let's go back to Benjamin being mild-mannered, and let's think about history of true crime and look at one in particular that I know most of us know about, Ted Bundy. He was a lawyer, clean-cut, well-mannered to most people, and I mean, he's world-known now for what he did, which, trust me, I'm going to indulge into his case at some point. That maybe have to be a 2 or 3 video thing. So just remember, just because somebody seems just really clean-cut, well-mannered, polite, that they may not be the person that you think they are. That's why I always tell my kids, just because somebody is like that doesn't mean that they're good people. And just because somebody may be covered in tattoos, which I am, and stuff like that, doesn't mean that they're bad. So you can't just judge people by the way they look. And, you know, going through this, I'm hoping more kids learn that too. His younger brother was unquestionably, Raymond was unquestionably the leader when it came to brutality. And he was the one that looked so meek. The two brothers named each other Elmin Benjamin and Elmon Ramon. The organization the brothers built up was known locally as the Tijuana Cartel. However, the field of operations soon expanded to cover a 100-mile stretch of the border between Tijuana and Mexico. The brothers would send their drugs by boat. The brothers, would send their drugs by boat or car. They also used a secret tunnel. And at one stage, the U.S. authorities, acting on a tip-off, searched a farmhouse on the American side of the border. Inside, they found an empty safe, the concealed entrance of a wide, well-lit tunnel that ran for nearly a mile under the border. Yes, they had dug out a mile-long tunnel under the border. This is crazy. A literal piping for drug trafficking, and that's what it was. That's what they used it for. The Tijuana cartel's reputation grew to such a degree that the law enforcement administration in the U.S. declared it to be one of the most powerful, violent, and aggressive drug trafficking organizations in the world, despite the cartel's increasing notoriety. However, the brothers were able to carry on without being arrested for 13 years. Which I wonder, does anybody know how long El Chapo's been going on before they ever caught him? I'll have to look that up, because now I want to know. To remain free, they spent an estimated $1 million a week on bribing politicians and policemen. Those who hold out and who were not important enough to need bribing in the first place were killed. It's that simple. The brothers murdered hundreds. They killed witnesses, bystanders, policemen, 2 police chiefs, several federal police commanders, judges, and even a Roman Catholic cardinal. Now, I know that, you know, people like this don't normally care, but what you don't understand is a lot of people, not all Hispanics are the only Catholics. You know, you got Irish Catholics and all that, but if you're Catholic, usually even that remains sacred even as you become a criminal. At least that's what I have found. Well, Juan Jesus Posadas Oak, I'm not even going to pronounce that last name. He was gunned down at the airport in Guadalajara when members of the gang mistook his car for that of a rival drug baron. So he was just kind of an accident that was caught in the crossfire. This misjudgment led them to lower their profile for a little while, but otherwise traffic and terror went on unabated. Ramon, in particular, became a notorious figure around Tijuana, driving around in a red Porsche, sporting a mink jacket and heavy gold jewelry. He started to recruit a new type of gangster to the business. These were so-called narco juniors. I've never heard that term until I started looking into these brothers. Rich kids who became hitmen for fun rather than profit. So basically they had hitmen that wanted to do it just because they wanted to do it, not because they were making money. They didn't need the money. Meanwhile, the brothers brutally became ever more extreme. In 1998, this is how recent this stuff was. They murdered the entire population of a small fishing town to set an example. A Tijuana prosecutor named Jose Pantio Moreno was kidnapped along with 2 aides. When their bodies were found, they were unrecognizable. Almost every bone in their bodies had been broken, and their heads had been crushed in a vice. When they say brutal, these guys were brutal. Years later, 2 policemen would be convicted and indicted on the killings. Inevitably, the flamboyant Ramon was the first brother to die. He got caught up in a gun battle with police in Mazatlan, Sinaloa in 2002, and I know I just butchered the hell out of that name. With Ramon's death, the gang's aura of invincibility was shattered. Soon afterwards, Benjamin was arrested at the house in the town of Publaya. I cannot pronounce that right. My southern accent kills me sometimes. Even if it's American, I can't pronounce some shit right. His bags packed, ready for flight. The youngest brother, Javier, was arrested at sea by the U.S. Coast Guard. I'm sorry. You never really hear much of the Coast Guard doing anything like this, but, you know, props to them. I know that they do put their life at danger with some things that are going on in our country. But he was arrested by the U.S. Coast Guard in August of 2006, which is actually the year my son was born, and the same month. Finally, Eduardo was captured by the Mexican Army in October of 2008. So it's been 9 years ago since Eduardo was captured. At the time, the U.S. State Department had been offering a reward of $5 million for information leading to his arrest. Despite the capture of Arellano-Felix Brothers, the rise of other drug lords like them means that multi-million-dollar drug trafficking is still a major revenue earner. And it is. I mean, our news was El Chapo for months and months and months and months and months. They were trying to do some stuff with Sean Penn because Sean Penn came up with photos of him with El Chapo, but I think he was covered under the fact that he was a journalist. I don't know how that worked, but he was protected by that. But I do know that El Chapo is being held somewhere. My husband told me, and I can't remember. I can't remember if he's here or if he's in Mexico. But they do finally have him. Do I think that drugs are being stopped? No. I don't think we'll ever stop trafficking drugs from that area, no matter what they do. I've sat and watched shows on Border Patrol, which is just like a reality show where you sit with the border, you know, they have cameras with the border police at the Mexican border coming into the U.S. And the way that some of these people hide drugs are really smart, but they've caught on, but they're not stupid. You know, reading what I've read, they'll put, you know, small amounts in areas that, you know, these people think, oh, well, they're going to hide it here. And I mean, it can be like clearing out gas tanks or whatever. And they'll have gas in there, but they'll have the drugs, you know, securely wrapped. And it might not be a big amount, but I bet you anything, a car that gets flagged through is probably loaded down. And that's not me knowing any, I mean, I don't know how they work. That's just me knowing what I know from study, research, school, everything else. The thing is how can cartels kill all these people, you know, and you have labels like serial killer, mass murderer? What is the difference? I know they won't label a woman really as a serial killer because they say we don't have the DNA, like there's a DNA marker. Is that the reason for it? Or is it because they more than likely kill because they feel like they have to survive, where a serial killer does it for other reasons? I'm curious to know what you think. So leave me a comment below and let me know. And if there's anybody you want me to look into, just let me know. I am happy to do it. I enjoy doing this stuff. And that's the whole reason why I started it. It gives me something to do. Love you guys.